Hello everyone, today we are talking about two major things all about photography. The first one is going to be the spooky photo challenge for October, and the second one is catching up on the last photo challenge all the way back from August. I am so sorry, I'm super late on it, but we are doing it. I cannot wait to show you how some of the Patreon members managed to integrate some graphic elements along with some photography as well. It's super cool. So let's go to start off with the spooky October photo challenge. What exactly is that? I figured it'd be fun for Halloween to have a video showcasing everyone's amazing talents for board game photography themed around, of course, scary elements, spooky stuff. The theme, of course, is scary, spooky, creepy, whatever you want to do around those adjectives, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure that it is, of course, appropriate to like general public audiences. Of course, like don't do anything crazy. Only thing that you have to do is, of course, make sure that you're using a board game component and combine that with a spooky element. I'm personally going to be taking on this photo challenge as well because it's going to be fun too. I'm going to be using one of the monsters from one of my favorite games of all time, which is Dwellings of Eldervale. I'm going to be taking a photo of that and posting it sometime next week. So you can check it out on Instagram if you're interested in seeing it there. But if not, you will also see it as well on October 31st. That is it. Submit a scary themed board game photo and the top winner of this challenge will be receiving my midnight shirt themed fittingly for our Halloween challenge. You have until October 28th, that way I have a couple of days to put this video together and I can't wait to see what y'all come up with. And speaking of photos that you all came up with, you have to see these next 3 photos for the August photo challenge. So the theme for that month is, or was, theme integration, which means how well can you immerse your audience into a theme encapsulated by a board game. Here's what you all came up with. This first one is from Chuon, who used a Canon EOS 70D along with a 100mm f2.8 macro image stabilized lens. Let me tell you now, that is the ultimate board gaming lens. If you're ever looking or if you're ever interested in investing into your first lens for board game photography, videography, you need to have that lens. It is a staple in my kit and I use it practically every single day. Now for this one, she was using tiny epic dinosaurs and going along with a cowboy theme. Right off the bat, I love the color schemes that she used here. I love the nice tones of browns being used across the wood and the rope. I think all that being used together really ties everything very cohesively. Now clearly, the subjects are beautifully represented with the Stegosaurus along with the leaf meeple, which could in turn serve as like food or even accents to, of course, the dinosaurs. And we have a nice little, I think it's a blue ranger in the back. I think there's also like a cowboy hat or some other leathery goods placed in the back as well. I loved how the loop was being used for the lasso because then it provides that nice center stage for our subject. Another really beautiful set of leading lines that I absolutely love in this photo is this wooden stick in the middle. So for this table, usually for tables when they stick out like that, I really like how the photos are staged around that. So it kind of points up towards the subject instead of having this towards the left side or the right side. Now for some feedback, there are a couple things I would consider tweaking here. I think the blue meeple may not be the greatest accent for this photo piece because I feel like because it's such a contrast to the yellow and green that it does point the viewer towards that direction and everything else is all brown. So I feel like that one can be removed out of the photo, especially since we can't really see or distinguish what exactly it is. It looks like a human meeple, but I called it a ranger earlier. But at the same time, I feel like it's kind of detracting away from our subject, which are the dinosaurs. For the details here, in terms of texture, I love seeing the tiny little hairs on the rope, along with the little breaks in like the wood for the meeples. You only get that kind of detail in a macro lens, which is absolutely amazing. Like I said, I love the color palette. I love the use of negative space here in the back because again, that's not really important in terms of the photo. Not like it's not important in the photo, but it's not important in terms of what the subject is being accented. It's like a nice little highlight, a nice little spotlight, so to say, for the dinosaurs in the middle. In terms of Chewy's previous photo compared to this one, I feel like this is such a major upgrade, especially for editing. I think she's honestly getting so much better because the yellows, what a lot of people would do, especially in board game photography, is that they'll oversaturate it. And honestly, oversaturating photos, it doesn't look professional. But here, I love how yellow is a very matted look. The green is matted, and it just blends so seamlessly with the overall brown color palette. That is called an eye for photography. Now to expand on that, she also took a landscape version of this photo, and this makes everything perfect because like I said, for the photo challenge, an extra step, like a little bonus incentive that I had was to also include some graphic elements integrated into your photo. So with this one, she then added in this. As photographers, I feel like our skill sets are always expanding beyond just actually taking photos, and graphic design just happens to be one of the things that are very, very helpful to include with your photo. Now, one thing that I think publishers are going to love later on is to have photos with graphic elements integrated into the photo. When you have like this kind of somewhat of a blank empty canvas inside your photo, so you have your subject off to the side and you have that negative space, you leave room for those graphic elements. And this is a perfect demonstration of how you can incorporate this into your photo. Like, this is a perfect social media image. You can use this to promote, you can use this on your website, and it just is amazing to have for marketing purposes, of course. That's the reason why I posed this graphic elements challenge, to have this idea for marketing later on. Chewy, if you plan to do board game photography professionally in the future, definitely have this in your toolkit because it is professionally done, beautiful across the board, and thank you for all your hard work. Now, number 2 comes from Mr. Jeeves doing a set on viticulture. Again, beautiful use of graphic elements. I love how he left this empty space here for the viticulture sign and the symbol. Honestly, I can't even tell whether or not it's a real vineyard or not, or whether it's a TV screen in the background, because the lighting is just so seamless and perfect. That's one key element that you really have to pay attention to when you have a background for your overall photo. If it's not a real background, definitely try to match your lighting. So notice here how the sky is matted and somewhat overcast. That lighting is reflected beautifully onto the meeples and this table. It looks like you're actually looking out into a vineyard, enjoying this beautiful view. I love how Mr. Jeeves here used the orange meeples to fill in the negative space on the sides. There's really nice symmetry going on between the meeples on the left side versus how the meeples are aligned on the right side. I think it was a great idea to use orange to contrast with the purple. The main subject, the meeple, isn't just put on a table with things behind it. No, it was stacked onto the grapes. Fresh grapes also with some nice little water droplets on them, which I think makes it look that much more fresh and inviting and appetizing. And there's a subtle detail here that I feel like as photographers, you kind of naturally ingrain into your rhythm, into your pattern of taking photos, but this little detail becomes kind of instinctive that you don't really think about it. So the grapes here are aligned so that way they kind of overlay over the mug. Simple, right? You don't think about those little details, but that's what ties in the foreground, the midground, and the background of photos. So when you are composing photos and you have a ton of components involved, it's always a good idea to think about this overlay effect that you have, especially when you are photographing like a straight on shot. You want to think about how you can merge the background elements along with the foreground elements to have the grapes kind of overlay over the wine glass, and to also use the same color in the foreground and the background. This is a perfect teaching lesson. Thank you, Kyle, for showing everyone this, because this is beautifully done. Very thematic, of course, nailed thematic integration by far. The use of graphic elements here in the sky perfectly ties in along with the purple meeples and the purple wine glass as well. For this photo, I wouldn't change a single thing about it. I think it is beautifully presented and should definitely be on Stonemeyer's website. And moving on to our last and final August theme integration photo challenge, we have one of my favorite games, one of my most anticipated games coming up this year, and that is Steam Up. So this photo was taken by Board Game Feast, Daniel at Board Game Feast. Daniel is literally the king of food board game photography. Seriously, every single time Daniel cooks and like shows off this amazing, wonderful feast, it just gets me so hungry, and I just want to take food photos as well. So here we have Steam Up, which is a board game all about dim sum. What I really loved about this photo is that Daniel didn't just put, you know, dim sum, but also incorporated different elements of the feast, like the tea and the sauce cups as well. I know you mentioned that he didn't like having the board games in the background and kind of would have redone it had he had another chance to stage this photo. But personally, I really liked having the board games in the background, because then you have this differentiation between, you know, food and board games. I feel like it ties in the front of the photo and the back of the photo, because if you just look at it without, you know, being in the board game hobby industry, you are kind of wondering, like, hey, what exactly is this? It's a box with some dim sum. Like, is this actual dim sum or is this something else? So I feel like having those board games in the background really makes sure the viewer, especially a brand new viewer to board games as well, knows that this is in fact a board game. I love the foreground use of the dim sum and the chopsticks, because they are not the main subject, but they accent what the main subject is, which is of course in that middle ground right there where you see all the little pieces and components and the board. There are two things I would have adjusted here. I would have probably stood up the meeples so we can see the characters, the dragon, the pig, and so forth. And secondly, I think because I like motion so much in my photos, I think it would have been really cool to just have him pouring tea into the teacups. I feel like that would have given it that extra oomph, you know, for the photo. And then if it was super hot tea too, you can see kind of the steam rising into the background, which is the board games. And then to incorporate that graphic element, maybe even dim the board game somewhat, have a like a gray text box faded out a little bit. And it would be even better if I was an actual graphic artist to somehow seamlessly tie in the smoke of the tea to the smoke of the graphic element, have like a little smoky cloud effect, and then of course, you know, coming out in October 19th or something like that. Overall, obviously you have nailed this photo, Daniel. Thank you for your theme integration challenge photo submission. This is honestly one of my favorite photos that you've taken. I love this beautiful spread and this beautiful composition of board game and food photography. And with that said, I cannot wait to see your October spooky photo challenges. I am working on mine now, waiting for some props to come in, but going from Spooktober to, you know, fall colors and Christmas as well. It's gonna be a fun way to end 2021 with some photo challenges. So with that said, thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you all on October 31st for the photo challenge, because I'll have other videos, of course, uploaded by then. But happy Halloween.